Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast where we look to reassure you and everyone else that football is fixable, alright? Alright, Sis?
Alright.
Yeah. Our name is brilliant.
It is, yeah.
It does just makes you laugh every time.
Have we actually mentioned to people how we came up with the name?
I don't know if we have we?
No.
I mean, in our first episode when we were meant to introduce it, I remember hearing it back a few weeks ago and I said, so what does it mean, Tess? And you said, I can't even remember what it means. So I think we got lost trying to remember what it meant.
In my defence, that was like 1 a.m. So.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, we recorded our first episode in the early hours. Didn't we?
So to our many fan, we should probably tell him tell him how.
Is it definitely him? Is it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Right. So we had a title. Originally, we had a podcast name that we came up with. We probably shouldn't say it because then we'll be
don't want to broadcast plug anyone else's podcast.
Exactly.
Do we?
Yeah. So,
but it was a football-related sort of
acronym.
Term. Yeah, like an acronym. Yeah.
So we chose it. We recorded the episode. We had the intro and everything. We published it, and then we searched for it on Spotify, I think it was, and out popped another arrival.
They've copied us.
Yeah.
5 months ago.
yeah. They clearly listened to our idea months before. They decided to go ahead and record it before we could record ours.
To be fair, we've been saying for it's probably a good couple of years, isn't it? We should record our conversations. So they must have got that idea from us.
Yeah, they were listening to us. So we decided I'm not going home until we come up with a name and then record the intro and publish it.
Yeah.
So we were there till about 3 a.m. And we had like a mind map, didn't we, of all different ideas, different titles. I can't even remember.
No, yeah, we're just thinking like something, all of the different acronyms and stuff around football. Yeah.
And one of it was a silly idea. I was just thinking of a football acronym which would have 2 F's because we wanted football and something about fixing.
Yeah.
So I could only think of FIFA, and I just said football is fixable.
All right. Oh, did you come up with that name? Did you?
Yeah, I came up. Are you going to try and steal that as well?
Look, you've stolen all of my ideas.
When? What ideas?
Unbelievable.
You
names
wrote
that I've
down,
come up with.
I said football is fixable, all right. You wrote it down as a thing because we didn't have many written down. So you wrote it down for a laugh and kept on going back to it.
This is the guy, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, or gentlemen. just one person. When we were trying to come up with our business name, when we're registering as a business, you said, why don't your name and my name combined, we could have sugar, sweet, that could be sweet swine.
No, I was looking in I was looking at synonyms for ham and sugar. And it came up with sweet swine.
The Sweet Swine Agency podcast. Brilliant. So who are you going to believe? I'll let you decide.
Are you actually going to try and steal?
Was it definitely your idea? This one I'm not 100% sure of.
Because I said it has to be something like FIFA.
I think it might have been you, this one, yeah. I think it might have been you. So what has happened this week? We're going to do a news thing. Do we have a good news?
Good news. Well, the first thing for me to say is once again, these famous ex-footballers have stolen our idea.
What have they done now?
After our last episode about football in America, we basically concentrated on America, that episode, didn't we? America. And surprise, surprise, stick to football with Neville, Keane, those
Righty
guys.
And Carroll and all that, yeah.
So they decided to bring on a legend in American football, JJ Watt.
This is so weird. Every week, as soon as we come out with something, we then hear it on the following week's podcast from other people, don't it?
Exactly. They thought, it's a brilliant idea. Let's focus on America. Let's get an American on.
I don't know. It's like selective hearing when you hear a word and then you hear it everywhere all of a sudden. It's like we come up with this idea for a topic and then everyone has the same idea. It's so weird how this works.
Yeah, but I think for us, it's genuine that we seem to be ground zero. We come up with the idea and then everyone takes
it like ripples out and everyone else just tags along because we set the trend. Yeah,
exactly. But it was actually quite fun to hear JJ Watt explain about American football because he mentioned about the draft system, which I'd always kind of heard about in America, but
I'm not sure I fully understand it actually.
No, so the players get given a star rating from 1 star to 5 star. The better you are, the more stars you get. Yeah. And the higher, the teams that are lower in the league, they get first pick, and so they can pick a 5-star player, and they have to play for the team that picks you. So
right.
Instead of just the best players going to the best teams and it will just continue being the best, you could have the equivalent of, I suppose, De Bruyne going to Burnley.
Yeah. So it's from competitiveness, it's brilliant, I suppose.
Yeah, they tried to make it as fair as possible, which you got to give it to the Americans. They do what they can to make the league as fair as possible, whereas that's one fault of not just the Premier League but football in general, is that the top teams, the best teams, can carry on being the best.
Yeah, the rich stay rich, and they stay at the top.
Yeah.
Unless you're Chelsea. No, there's another thing actually with football that he was talking about that I think is not done as well in football than it is over in America. And that's, what he said about agents' fees, paying like the agent, because over here agents are paid just ridiculous amounts of money, millions and millions, billions probably.
100 billion.
Yeah, exactly. Loads and loads of money. Was it capped at 3% or something, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he said no more than 3% for agency.
This is what I imagine a regulator coming into football will put something like that in place, but why that hasn't happened. He said it, and I really liked it. He said it's like the Wild West.
Yeah.
In terms of the agents. The agents are earning more than some footballers. It's just ridiculous.
And it puts clubs off as well, doesn't it? They go, well, it's a reasonable fee to pay a player, but then the agents' fees.
This might be a perfect player to fit the team, and everything else is all organised, but the agents' fees. And I think Everton are actually in partly all your financial madness that's happened. Partly is the agency fees that you've had to pay, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's helped put you in as much debt as you're in, sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's probably something that I'd imagine Nottingham Forest and Sheffield United getting deducted points. I'd imagine that's probably it plays a bigger part to the lower teams like us, because
smaller revenues and things.
Yeah, it makes much more of a difference then, doesn't it? If they charge a flat fee, then it's going to make a bigger difference for us.
Yeah, true. Yeah, sort of relatively.
Yeah.
In other news,
this
sounds very official now. Last weekend, after the Spurs game, there was the commentator it was like a highlight when they sort of say, "Oh, and he scored," and and the commentator gives like the highlights of the game.
Yeah,
coming out on the radio. And one commentator said, and you'll like this one, we had our Silly Sayings episode.
Yeah, that's quite a popular one. Yeah.
Do you remember, it's a game of two halves, this one. I think we mentioned that as one of the Silly Sayings. What's?
Of course it is.
Well, I'd never heard this one before. Have you ever heard this? So, it's a half of 2 quarters.
To have to calculate before you understand something like, wait. Okay,
So it's like the game of two halves, but on a smaller scale. But it's the same. Yeah. So you sort of understand what you. So
it's the same as it's half a half, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. One team dominated the first half, and then it completely switched, and you get a game of two. That's what a game of two halves is, isn't it? Each half is dominated by the opposite team, sort of thing. So a half of 2 quarters. I've never heard that before. I quite like it actually.
I quite like it, but the thing is, there's a lot of people out there that don't like maths. And I can just imagine so many people going, "What? It's a core of whatever."
Well, let's not get Matthew on it. Just get lost in all the numbers.
By the way, he came up with a great name for what we called Matthew Maths.
Right.
He called it Mathematics.
Mathematics.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. I didn't. In fact, actually, I'll edit it so that we came up with the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine.
So good idea, there, Seth. That's a very good idea. I'll let you have that one.
Oh yeah, but you'll somehow steal the football is fixable.
That I'm not 100% sure. I'm 90% sure you came up with that one. But I think I said that all right at the end.
No, I said all right. You laughed at it, and we kept on laughing.
Okay. Yeah. I'm 92% sure it's you.
So originally,
the idea of a podcast was me.
That was me.
Anyway. No, genuinely, what you are. I don't know if you're joking. I think you genuinely believe this, don't you?
I do. I don't believe it. I know it.
Right.
I've got another piece of news.
Yep.
I want to ask you a question, actually. So,
right.
Champions League just happened.
Oh, the games, they're really good, aren't they?
They were brilliant. Yeah.
Brilliant games.
So, the Arsenal-Bayern game.
Yes. Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. I'm assuming that you think, as well as all these Arsenal fans, that it was a penalty.
Aha. Well, actually, so you know what? When I was watching it, it was such an intense game. When the actual incident happened, Saka had the penalty claim at the end of the game. It was right at the end, wasn't it? Like at the end of the injury time or whatever. And I was just I watched it, and then normally you've watched me. I say you've watched me, but when we're watching football together, you've seen me shout and scream and cheering or whatever it is. I get well into it when it's Arsenal. And
you
stuff,
do,
as you know,
annoyingly.
But yes, I imagine it is. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
but it's emotion, isn't it? It's
well, that's the beauty.
That's the beauty of football, isn't
it?
There you go.
It's unique.
But when I saw it, I remember consciously reflecting back at this, like at the time, being like out of body experience, because it was all just happening so fast, and I just sat there in silence as it was all the claims and the noise was happening, and then afterwards Rio was like, "How's that not a penalty? That's an absolute disgrace from the ref," and that kind. Well, I might be, paraphrasing a little bit, but essentially he was absolutely just gobsmacked. It wasn't a pen.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I know we've spoken about this in the past about. You impressed?
I'm gobsmacked.
You will be in a minute. But no, it just reminded me of, like, the Vardy things and like how players. I love Saka to bits. He was getting kicked so much for so long, since he's been in the team. It's like 4 or 5 years now, I think.
Yeah.
So he was about 17 when he broke into the side. And he carried Arsenal so far, getting kicked, and he'd never go down. The ref wouldn't give any free kicks. The problems with the referees. But going back to your initial question, I wasn't sure it was a pen.
Okay.
I was a bit more torn. I thought if it was given, I don't think VAR would have turned it over. I thought it was in that sort of middle ground kind of thing, where it's kind of like, it's not a clear and obvious error if it's given or if it isn't. I don't think it should. I know what you're going to say, because I don't think it should be a penalty, but it often is. The problem is consistency. Vardy made a living out of getting those kind of penalties.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I think of it. I'm probably more, how to say it, like, I see it probably more clearly that it's not a penalty, because for me, that kind of thing, it absolutely...
It shouldn't be.
No, but I've seen it given. And so if you look at consistency, it either is always given or it should always not be given.
Exactly. I don't think it should be, so I agree with you in that. But the reason why I thought it could be a penalty, I think Saka was perhaps harshly treated in a way, is because so many other players have got those penalties in the past.
Yeah.
So
that's a wrong way to think of it, I think.
Yeah, true.
But they all got away with it. I should as well. And so...
That's very true, yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I saw it, and we've always said that refereeing standards are really bad and diving's gotten really bad. And so things like this keep getting given, and softer and softer challenges are given. And with that one, you could quite clearly see, we've said before, if you go against the natural movement of your body, it becomes very obvious.
That's the way to...
Yeah, when I saw it in normal play, I saw his leg go up and out towards Neuer.
Why would it do that? Yeah.
Yeah, and the only reason you would do that is like when Michael Owen did it in the 2002 World Cup, I think. He won the penalty for Beckham to score against Argentina.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's just sticking your leg out in an obvious way, which is completely against the natural movement of your body. Even Saka going home that night, he would be outraged that he didn't get a penalty, but I'm sure he would have also thought, why didn't I just run normally and score?
Yeah. That's one thing, because you were saying about you heard loads of Arsenal fans and stuff.
Yeah, on TalkSport.
Yeah. You mentioned this earlier, didn't you? Well, I was just thinking, I heard a few, or I've read a few comments online, stuff like that. Why didn't Saka just run past? So some Arsenal fans are logical. There are people like me out there who actually know how to not just be stupidly biased.
It's unfortunate that it's such a tiny minority. But
the thing is, the ones you hear
insignificant is the word I would use.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, the ones who normally you get to hear on like the mainstream media, the talk sports and stuff like that, they're the ones who get put on because they're controversial. It's like the people who get chosen for The Apprentice. Yeah. They are the idiots.
Which reminds me, why haven't you called into TalkSport?
I could probably get on quite. Wait a minute, I shouldn't. No, I'd never get on. But no, it's interesting because after the game, actually it was just because it was right at the end of injury time, wasn't it? So one thing I'll say is well done, referee, because I think it was very brave to not in the home team not getting a penalty when it's that loads of penalties by that standard have been given, like we were saying.
Yeah.
The ref not to do that, and I think he's the youngest ref to ever referee a quarter-final of a Champions League or something. He's like 35 or something. He's younger than us.
Wow.
So they were talking about that before the game, so fair play to him.
Yeah.
But I was getting a text from, the guy at work who's a Liverpool fan. He keeps telling me how Saka's like probably overrated and which I think, I'm seeing a lot of this. I think that's unfair and not correct either. But maybe that's my bias, who knows. But I think Saka's absolutely incredible. But yeah, it was basically, this guy from work was saying how, Saka's diving. He sent me those shifty eyes emoji. He's put Saka with those shifty eyes, thinking, "Hello, he's doing it again," sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought, just the previous weekend, there was the Phillips, wasn't it, on Wan-Bissaka?
No, Harvey Elliott.
Elliott, that was it. Why did I say Phillips? Harvey Elliott. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just making sure you make contact with the defender.
Yeah.
There wasn't actually any contact though.
No, I had there was a friend of mine, Liverpool fan, also kept on saying that should have been a penalty. But you can quite clearly see that he'd made the decision to fall before Wan-Bissaka even got near him. Yeah. And he just dragged his leg to make sure there was contact.
He made sure, yeah. And the thing, I suppose...
the problem is, there was no contact, and it just made it look so stupid.
That's the thing, but yeah, there wasn't any contact. He just ended up collapsing, didn't he?
Yeah.
But I was chatting to Dan, as we often do, about United games and stuff like that, during the game and all that kind of thing. And Dan wasn't able to watch it. He was driving over from work. But I said to him, yeah, it's a definite penalty. But that's in the mindset that... Because I think it is a penalty based on what's gone before, not what should be. This is starting to sound like a Batman. He's a hero that Gotham does. But in terms of it, I agree with you that it should not be given as a penalty. But we've seen it so many times before. These players are taught how to dive, and by diving, now refs are now cottoning on to if that's a dive, I'll book you. Yeah. But if you force contact, the refs don't understand that that's not a natural position like you were talking about.
Yeah. So the natural movement of the body.
It's a more sophisticated way. It's as they say in Batman Begins. Just to, we're both Batman fans. I'm sure everyone else is Batman fans out there. But escalation. When Gordon talks to Batman on the roof and he says, from guns, automatics to semi-automatics to automatics. And you put Kevlar on, sort of body armour. Then they buy armour-piercing rounds. That's what this is. Yeah. I know these Batman quotes, by the way. But that's what this is. If they'll dive. The refs start spotting what diving is. So now they do a more sophisticated type of dive where they make sure there is contact. Yeah. That's what this is all about.
But the problem is, it's not sophisticated because...
It is for the refs.
It is for the refs, but that's because they haven't gone to our ref schools.
That's true, yeah.
Because we've said, since, I don't know, maybe we're teenagers or in our 20s, about the natural movement of the body and how easy it is to spot diving.
Yeah, if we saw it on Sunday League, we'd always spot it. There was one or two that would dive, you just laugh at them.
Yeah, and we've noticed, in these penalty claims as well, in normal time, from a camera angle, which is much further away than where the referees are. Yeah. And yet we can see it's not the natural movement of the body immediately. And then you just look at the slow-mo and go, well, there you go. See, it's not the natural movement. And yet refs on the pitch, seeing it a few metres away, are confused. And then they go to VAR and they look at it slow motion. They're confused. It's the referee standards, isn't it?
It is referee
standards.
We've said this all this
time.
They need to go back and watch. I think it's episode 4 or something. If you're not sure, guys, if you're new to listening to us, or guy or
the
girl,
PGMOL,
PGMOL, especially you guys, if you're listening, go and listen to our episode 4, I think it was, refereeing standards.
Better yet, just give us a call, just hire us, we'll fix it.
Yeah, we could. We're happy to. We'll book a date in after our knighthood, probably.
Yeah, we'll have to get
the knighthood first. We could probably charge a bit extra once we're knighted.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, so actually, don't call us yet.
give us a couple of weeks first.
Yeah, we'll get back to you as well.
Put that in the diary as well. Yeah. Right. So this episode is about us fixing, FFP, but it's not called that anymore, is it?
It's not.
So it's been replaced. Instead of FFP, it's called something else. What's it called again?
It's PSA.
What's this called again? Right, so it's meant to basically, it's the punishments in football, isn't it? If you aren't financially in control of your, if you're spending more than you should, basically.
Yeah, it's not a matter of how much you can spend, it's a matter of how much you can lose.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But it's not called FFP. PSA.
Yeah, PSA.
Apparently, so a prostate-specific antigen.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. It's the I remember.
Is that what they've replaced FFP with?
Yeah, it's specifically about prostates. Yeah.
But it's a test it's a blood test that measures level of PSA in a sample of blood.
Yeah, there we go.
Sounds painful. Is that what Everton have had to go through? Isn't it?
Okay, maybe it's not PSA. It was something like that.
Hold on a minute. Let's look this up. Oh, PSR.
PSR. There we go.
So PSR, which is the profit and sustainability. Well, we've got. It looks like it's regulations. There's also some are calling it rules. Okay. So it's either profit sustainability regulations or profit and sustainability rules.
Well, regulations sounds more proper. It sounds official.
It does. So we'll go with that. So PSR, the profit sustainability rules or regulations. We'll go with regulations.
Yeah.
And the idea is, it looks like you can't make a more than £105 million pound loss over a 3-year rolling period.
Yeah.
So that's the general concept of it. So teams can still make a loss, which sounds bonkers anyway.
Yeah, it might come across as a surprise to you, but I know it quite well.
Is that anything to do with your allegiances as an Everton fan, by the way?
A little bit, maybe. The fact that we've been charged twice and we're about to be charged a third time. Yeah.
That's that. If that happens, I think I mentioned this on an episode a few weeks ago, but I've got a bet on the 2 teams that aren't Everton were going to get relegated, and that was after nothing personal, got nothing against those teams, but it's at the start of the season. After a few weeks of watching them, I thought they're just guaranteed to go down. It's just going to happen. But then all this stuff started happening. You should not be so. The punishment. The reason why we're looking at this today, the punishments are happening throughout a season, and the punishments are also weirdly different, inconsistent. Then they're getting appealed against, so they're changing. So the goalposts, excuse the pun, are kind of like
they're changing. Yeah,
well, exactly.
Well, let's
What's
talk
Luton
about
thinking? You've got teams dropping down below them, then they're above them.
Let's talk about the problems first, instead of just...
I'm just ranting.
Yeah, you seem to be going through all of the things that... Well, this is going to be a 15-minute episode, actually.
Sorry, I just had to...
One of the problems I have with it is that it's only affecting the lower teams. So the 3 teams that have been deducted points so far are 3 of the bottom 5 teams?
Yeah, was it? So Everton, Forest, and Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Although Sheffield United is going to take place next season. The next time they're in the Championship.
Yeah.
So next season.
Next season.
But that's what I was saying on a previous episode, wasn't it? That I know we're getting onto the fixes, but it shouldn't be happening during a blooming season.
All right, we'll get to that.
All right, sorry, carry on.
I have a problem with that because the whole idea is supposed to be that, well, there's 2 reasons. They want to try and make it fairer in terms of you can only really spend within your revenue, I suppose. And the other way is to stop teams from losing so much money because they don't want teams to go bust or anything.
Yeah, like the Berry situation and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it came out.
So I can understand that. However, the problem I have is that it's only affecting the lower teams because the lower teams have to spend so much more in order to try and keep up with the top teams. And I know this whole idea, we live in a world of capitalism, so if the top teams have more revenue, then they should be allowed to spend more. And I get that, but all it means is that if you cap the losses, the gap is just going to get bigger and bigger.
So the rich get rich, poor stay poor kind of thing.
Yeah, and we mentioned last episode when on Stick to Football they had the guy from American football, JJ Watt, on there, and he was mentioning about the revenue differences and stuff. And he just saw it as, it's just incredible the amount of money that was being spent at the top, and the top teams could afford to buy the top players, which means they'll carry on being the top. And there's no way to try and balance it in any way.
That's what you were saying, something in a similar kind of concept is on Call of Duty. When we're playing against the hardcore gamers on Call of Duty, and I mean, I'm normally top, as you know, but when you're like struggling around the bottom of the league tables and stuff, you're saying, like, it's not fair that, all these pros...
I keep telling you can't do my voice for you, for me.
So, it's not fair that... here it goes, it's different.
Is it?
That all these pros, they get all the best guns. And that's what... And I kind of understand what you're saying. So what you're saying, that the better you are, the more you should... Almost hold them back, almost like a handicap or something? Or
I see it as, in Mario Kart, the further back you are, the better the weapons you can get. So if you're first, you don't get lightning.
No, you end up with a banana all the blooming time.
Yeah, or an extra coin or something.
Great.
Whereas, imagine in Call of Duty, if you're doing really well, your guns keep getting worse or something. You can only have a pistol or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and then the worse you are, the better the guns you get. So when we play with people like Coops, for example, he'd have brilliant guns.
Just let that settle for a minute. That's so harsh. Sorry, Coops. I didn't script that or anything. That's Seth's.
You just said I was towards the bottom when I'm not. I'm usually above you.
Yeah, but that's you. People side with... When you watch your favourite shows, you always have favourite characters, don't you? And I'm everyone's favourite. So...
Favourite idiot?
I'm just saying favourite.
No.
You can add on what you like. If that makes you feel better, that's fine.
Well, I'm the editor, so I can do all that.
So it's a general problem we've got. We're both, I think, agreed that there should be punishments in place for if you're spending more than your rivals, and it's if you're breaking the rules, essentially, it's not competitive. The idea of having rules in competitiveness is, to be fair, it's a level playing field.
Yeah,
again,
it's not about spending more than rivals, because unless you want to say everyone's only allowed to spend this much, it's always going to be different amounts. But it's not necessarily that.
I'm going to write that down. That's a good fix. I've just come up with there.
Is it another one of those that I say and then you claim?
No, this is actually one that you've said that I'm going to say is my idea. Unlike all the other ideas that you've stolen from me.
I'm so glad that we're now actually recording these things, so there's recorded proof of your theft of my ideas.
I think that's a really good idea. I had ideas for fixes, but that's actually a good idea that I came up with. That you came up sort of. It made me come up with.
Right.
So like 100 million. All right, we'll get to the fixes in a minute.
Are you going to bring it up then? Okay,
yeah.
I don't think necessarily that there's always going to be different amounts spent, but I've actually always been quite forward in terms of saying that Everton should be punished, haven't I?
Yeah, you have,
I support Everton.
Fair. Yeah.
Everton absolutely should be, because, I mean, in terms of a selfish point of view, I think this is the only way the owners of Everton are going to learn to stop doing what they're doing, so that it would benefit Everton in a sense.
Yeah.
But another problem I have with it is the inconsistency.
Yeah, this is just, and what you mean by that, we've talked about how the bottom teams seem to be the ones punished.
Yeah.
But also how those punishments have been arrived at is something that we can't figure out.
Yeah. So Everton would, Man City were charged first, actually.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll have to mention Man City.
Yeah, we'll get back to that one.
Yeah.
So Everton were next, and they got deducted 10 points.
10 points, yeah.
They originally wanted to do 12, but then they they thought maybe 12 is a bit harsh, so they did 10. And then we appealed, and they reduced it to 6, because they went, oh yeah, you're right, actually. And so they reduced it to 6.
Right.
And then
no new evidence or anything.
No. There literally wasn't. But yeah, Forest were next, and they lost more money than Everton, and yet they were charged, was it 4 points?
Yes, Forest are 4 points.
Yeah.
But that was only arrived at following the appeal, the successful-ish appeal from Everton to bring it down to 6. So I wonder what the points would have been initially charged at against Forest if that appeal hadn't have gone ahead at that time.
Yeah, but it's just bizarre to me that they lost more than Everton, and yet they were deducted fewer points than us even after an appeal.
Yeah,
there's no consistency.
I know there's some things that will be how open you were with letting people know about it. I know that in accounting that if you flag up that you made an error and stuff like that, which Everton did, by the way, they actually highlighted it to the Premier League in the body. Oh, actually, our accounts are like this, and they were quite forward facing with it, which to their detriment, to be honest. And then they get punished like that. But then that I think was part of the reason why the appeal was successful.
Yeah. But then Sheffield United, I know it's because they lost money during the Championship and stuff, they'll be charged by the EFL. So, okay, that's fine. But then that's 2 points again. So there's just absolutely no consistency.
How do you determine per point how much, like what's the, how are you coming to this number of points as a punishment?
Yeah.
I don't know how, it's like a number from a hat. It was 10.
Yeah, exactly. And when they're being charged is something that we'll come to as well. And the appeals process, I think, is also weird as well. I understand there has to be an appeal process in all of these matters. That's fine. But it just seems to be, or what do they call it? It's a formality.
Oh, formality.
It's just a formality.
It's just going to happen.
Yeah. You get deducted points, but don't worry, just appeal and we'll reduce it for you. Because all Everton did was just reiterate the points that they said before.
Yeah, so there was no... You said... So there's no new evidence at all for...
No, they just reiterated.
We were quite open and clear. We made these mistakes. We've acknowledged it. We signposted you towards it.
Yeah,
maybe we're a bit harsh, actually.
Yeah, they wanted to charge us 12 points, but then they thought, no, we'll charge 10 points. Then we appealed and they said, we'll give you 6 points. So there's absolutely zero idea about... there's no set number of points to deduct for certain punishments. They just kind of willy-nilly decide on a number.
Yeah, well, how's the severity of the punishment determined is basically what you're saying, isn't it?
The final point about all this is that the points deducted, it's much more, I think we mentioned it before, it's much more detrimental to the lower teams than it is the top teams.
Which is, you do wonder why that is, and then you've come up with a theory with that, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I likened it to if both Elon Musk and I get given speeding fines, and so they fine Elon Musk 500 quid and they fine me 500 quid, it's going to make far more of a difference to me than it is
relative
Musk.
to... Should be a percentage or something, shouldn't it?
So, Man City...
Got to write that down as well.
That's it. Your idea, is it?
I just said percentage, so yes.
Yeah, so Man City, 115 charges, and well before Everton, Forest or Sheffield United were going to get charged anything. And I know they're different charges. City fans are going to come back to us. They're different charges. They're different things. Still allegations and all that stuff. We know that. We're not talking about any of that. But the fact is... There's all this talk about them potentially being relegated to the Championship. How is that a punishment that is meaningful in any way? Because...
Yeah, that wouldn't be... We're talking about fixing it. That wouldn't be a good fix.
No. Forest being deducted 4 points is probably going to get them... is very likely to get them relegated. 4 points for one charge. 115 charges for Man City is going to get basically the same punishment. Yeah. And all that'll happen is they'll just come back up the next season.
It's in a different way of writing it, though. You're not saying you're getting relegated, are you? It's just, this is a 4-point deduction for Forest. For Man City, if you say you're relegated, it might be the same outcome, but that wasn't the same punishment as that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the outcome is the impact. So the impact is more severe for one club than another.
Yeah. All that'll happen for City is they'll just come back up the next season. Whereas Forest, they might not come back up the next season.
Yeah, very true. Did you know, so this was in the last couple of weeks, so there was a vote in the Premier... We've got more news, to be honest, following good our news earlier. Good news, or maybe not good news, I don't know. So there was a vote with all the Premier League clubs. You know that 14 clubs need to vote for something for it to be approved. So there was a vote with the Premier League clubs, right, to basically be more aligned with the UEFA financial sustainability rules, basically.
Yeah.
And their rule, the UEFA rules, are that limits spendings on players and coaches' wages, transfers and agents' fees as well to 70% of a club's revenue. So that's the way UEFA does it.
Yeah.
They had a vote, all the Premier League clubs. Do you know what the outcome was?
I'm assuming they were for it.
No. So in the build-up to it, they were for it, but it didn't pass. It didn't pass the vote. So they're going to, this is for next season. Yeah. So for next season, it's going to still be the Premier League's anal prostate thingy, whatever it is. Anal prostate. The blood...
as opposed to the facial one.
As opposed to the facial prostate thing. Yeah. So we are... I keep saying so still.
I wonder if it's the best of a worst bunch.
The least evil. What's the phrase? The better of the two evils. The lesser.
Problem with keeping with a certain percentage of your revenue is that you still have the problem that the top teams are still going to be able to spend loads more, and the problem is that this is why I'm fascinated by the American system that they have in the NFL that we were talking about last episode and stuff. They try things to make things fairer. I was even telling you once, wasn't I, with Formula One, that they were trying to flip the qualifiers. So the first place will start 20th and so forth. It doesn't work, but sports are trying to make things fairer, to try and even up the odds between top and bottom.
Improve competition. You want things competitive. Yeah.
And one problem that football has is it's not an individual sport where, say for example with Federer, when Federer retires, there's no longer a Federer to continue. Whereas in football, players for Man City can retire, but City
the club
continues.
Still stays powerful.
Yeah. And so teams like Real Madrid, for example, players will automatically want to play for them, and the top players will want to go. Mbappe, for example, he wants to go there.
He's got a draw to go to the club.
He's been offered more money elsewhere, but he said, no, I want to go to Real Madrid. And so the top teams with the top illustriousness, eliteness... Elitism, with the top elitism. That doesn't sound right. But the elite teams, they will still have that draw that bottom teams don't. Yeah. And so the bottom teams...
Unless you're Man United.
But the bottom teams, the reason why they're overspending is because that's the only way they can try and draw people away from the elite teams. And so if you're taking that away from them, then the top teams will have more money and the elite status.
Yeah, there's no real clear, easy fix in terms of there's lots of issues around football you've highlighted there, to be honest. Yeah. And to make it more competitive. And it also feels, I do hear it a lot, I don't always agree with it, but the idea of corruption in football and stuff like that, often these big clubs stay big and you wonder, I mean, the whole idea of the Super League, and although the Super League didn't go, fortunately it fell through, didn't it? It didn't go through. But what they have done to the Champions League from next season, is it? They're opening it up to more teams. It's basically to help keep the money flowing in and the rich staying rich, isn't it? To make sure, also to widen up the number of places available so that the big teams can still have a better chance of qualifying. Yeah. There's so many different things like this to help the big teams stay big, and that's not what sport should be. No, so there's definitely football related issues we need to fix. This one then, so fixing these, can we go on to fixing now?
Yes.
So fixing the actual regulations, the financial regulations, how you monitor and do all that. I came up with a great idea.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Basically, if you just have a cap of like, say 100 million, that's the maximum you're allowed to spend. It doesn't have to be 100, it could be 50 million. I'm trying to think so it's fair from the Burnleys and Sheffield Uniteds to the Man Uniteds and Man Cities and the Chelseas. And
is this a cap in overall, so like including wages and stuff, or is it just the transfer fees?
Yeah, wages as well, I suppose would be fair. Yes.
Well,
I definitely have thought this through. Yeah, but the wages as well, because that would mean that players aren't going to choose clubs purely because of how much money they're earning. Yeah. Which again, that's not for the good of competition, is it? To be honest,
it's an American style to have salary caps and stuff. I'm going to add to that a little bit. Yes. But it was already my idea, so I'm just going to improve what I've already said. All right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So the system of getting everyone to spend evenly, I think, is a little bit off. It's getting there, but I think what it should be is that the higher you are, the less you can spend.
So it's sort of the mean average across the kind of range. No, it'd be the range average. I suppose,
range, yeah. So you know what we said before with on Call of Duty, Mario Kart and stuff.
The Mario Kart example. It's the Mario Kart fix, really, isn't it?
The Mario Kart method. That's what we should call it. The MKM.
Yeah. So let me just check. That doesn't mean anything. Some prostate exam.
But yeah, I think that would be quite cool, because then you finish, like, say for example, Man City wins the league. So they get given the prize money. Fine, the prize money can be big and scaled down the lower you are. That's fine. But then the following year, you are allowed to spend the least, and the lower you were, the more you can spend the next time round. Because it doesn't necessarily mean, say for example, Everton finished 17th and we managed to scrape our way back into the league again, we can spend more money than City, but it doesn't mean we can get better players than City. It'll just mean that we've got a better chance to be able to try and get up the league.
To close the gap, essentially.
And then the top teams have to be smarter in how they spend, so that they still have the players the following season as last season when they won the league, so they're not going to suddenly find themselves in the relegation zone, but they have to be smarter in how they spend money and improve.
So the idea that there is a cap, there is a limit, because it does seem sometimes you can just spend ridiculous amounts of money. Look how much Chelsea spent in the last window.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like $1 billion in something? It's
$1 billion in 18 months or something?
In 18 months, yes, since Bowley's come in or something like that, which is just ridiculous, you know, that they've been able to spend that much. So having a cap for a start, it ticks that box, but also it's pro-competition. Yeah. Because you're making the top and the bottom of the Premier League more competitive. Yeah. One possible criticism could be how it might impact on our competitiveness to other leagues. Yeah. So maybe this needs to be a FIFA, UEFA...
An overarching
thing across all leagues.
Yeah, because we noticed that with the transfer market. Do you remember when we tried to close the transfer market before the start of the new season?
Yeah, so it doesn't impact... Because people kept... from abroad or whatever, would buy our players. Yeah. So then we'd start the season and then we couldn't buy anyone else to replace them.
So I think it was only us and Italy that did it.
Right.
But everyone else refused. So both Italy and England thought, all right, well, we're not gonna
shoot ourselves in the foot. Yeah. And it's gonna benefit Spain and everyone else.
Yeah. So I think it's like that. Yeah. So in fact, actually, that's a good point. So what we're saying is, we normally say, the Premiership and stuff should listen to our podcast, but what we're saying is FIFA
Who are they?
UEFA. FIFA, not FIFA.
Oh, actually, okay.
Yeah. FIFA and UEFA need to actually learn from us and listen to this podcast, hire us properly, so we can fix all of football.
Yeah, fixing all of football.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's something we need to do.
Yeah. Real Madrid creating the Galacticos, they were already one of the 2 best teams in their league, and they were able to spend so much money that they stayed at the top. That's just mad.
But they didn't win much, though, did they? They actually, in terms of trophies, they didn't. So this was going to be my question to actually. Should, clubs take it on themselves, some clubs anyway, to be more sustainable themselves, and they have a model that kind of works. There might be they sell on, for example. I was thinking like the Southamptons for a while, played really good football, finished quite well. I suppose their fans might say we never won anything.
Well, that's what I was talking to your dad about, wasn't it?
You and my dad were getting on quite nicely earlier.
Papa Hammett, let's call him. Yeah, he was. So we were talking about. I don't know what we should call it. The Southampton model, the Brighton model. Well, it's probably the Southampton model. So,
Brighton have done something similar, haven't they?
Yeah, we were talking about Brighton originally because they've made a lot of money out of the selling players to Chelsea, basically.
They're talking about the profit and loss, their accounts. It came out, what was it, a week or 2 ago? They're one of the most profitable clubs out there at the moment.
And they've been doing well for a few years in selling their players, but still playing in a good way and creating these great players. But now they've started to decline because they've just maybe been selling too many players.
It's almost caught up with them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Plus they've had a lot of injuries as well.
Yeah, and that's I call it the Southampton model because you remember Southampton went on a 5-6 year.
The football they were playing was amazing, and all the players were buying into the philosophy there, and then they'd sell the players on, make loads of money. More new players would come through, through the youth system, get them in cheap, either by buying them or progressing them up from the youth teams.
Yeah, relative unknowns.
And then they turn them into all-stars.
Yeah, basically. And they had some absolute quality players like Mane and
I think Liverpool bought most of them, didn't they?
Yeah. Luke Shaw and stuff have hung around in big teams. They have also
Van Dijk as well.
Yeah, they've shown that a lot of it was to do with their system, because I remember Morgan Schneiderlin looked like a great player for Southampton. Then he went to United and got quite exposed, and then got into Everton and couldn't even play for Everton. I mean,
that was the period when Everton were just signing loads of number 10s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You didn't really have you let your strikers go, and then you just kept signing.
We sold Lukaku, and then we bought Rooney, Sigurdsson, Schneiderlin, Walcott, Townsend. They were all these kind of almost has-beens in a sense for the top teams. We just kind of saw these mid-30s players that played for top teams and thought maybe...
There's definitely... That's a must. And talk about sustainability. That doesn't sound very sustainable, does it?
Not at all, no.
Good old
Everton. Southampton model.
But you have to manage it.
In the end.
Yeah, that's the thing. It will catch up with you. So you can do it, but you have to... Maybe don't sell a player until you have a ready replacement, basically. Yeah. Southampton, someone's they saw the money. In Brighton, you might say... Again, the injuries have really put a light on this, but maybe they've let a few too many players go too quickly, because of the money that was offered or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you can understand that, but, how easy is it to replace that player? And are you willing to take a hit and end up falling down the league in terms of placement? If, you end up relying on a player like Solly March or something like that, and then he's injured for the season.
Yeah.
Suddenly you've got a big issue you've got to solve, so... But it's a good model, though, isn't it? It's, I think you asked me a few episodes ago about who would be my next favourite team other than Arsenal, as a neutral.
Yeah.
And I think I said you use Brighton because of the style of football, the way that the type of club they are, how they operate.
Yeah.
I just think they're quite
they're
admirable.
Yeah. They do things in the right way usually, and they've got a brilliant Japanese player as well.
They do. Yeah, Matoma. Yeah, he's been injured as well, actually.
Yeah. And that's shown it.
What do you think about talking about a different club, a club that doesn't necessarily do it in the right way? I don't know.
But do we want to talk about Arsenal?
So in terms of Arsenal, no. What do you think about the whole 115 charges against Man City?
Well, I'm not going to go into the specifics of what they've been charged for, because although we've been told what they've been charged for, it's still all allegations and stuff.
There's lots of allegations that we don't know if they're guilty or not.
I completely get that, and I don't think any of the charges are the same as what Everton, Forest...
No, it's not about overspending. Essentially, it's about money coming in or payments from... You're paying managers more than they should be paid.
Yeah, and where the money's coming from.
And also where the money's coming from, such as sponsorships instead of actual legitimate revenue streams,
But the biggest problem I have is that something like 30-something of those charges, or maybe more than that, is their refusal to... Cooperate, refuse to show their accounts and stuff like that. Why
would you do that?
Yeah. Firstly, it completely shows your guilt. Imagine any company doing
suggests that you're not completely innocent if you're hiding. No, nothing to see here.
What's worse? The Everton, Forest and Sheffield United admitting and coming forward with the losses they've made, or a top team refusing over and over again to show their accounts.
Yeah, and they've also hired the best criminal lawyer in the country.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that would be.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they're innocent. My gut tells me they must be innocent.
Yeah, they're just hoping the glove doesn't fit, aren't they?
Very topical.
Yeah, very topical.
But
I just think that the biggest thing for me, and I've mentioned this several times, is the proportionate punishment. Because if they just get relegated to the Champions League, I'm convinced that they will still be able to convince all of their top players to stay with them.
Just get promoted.
Yeah.
You mean Championship, by the way, not the Champions League, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Championship. So, you know what, you'll still win, we'll destroy the league we're in, you'll still win a trophy, we'll come back up the next year, and it'll just be a laugh.
So what would you do then? I agree with that, and you've mentioned that in the past. And
City fans have said it as well, haven't they?
There's one City
fans.
Yeah, I've said this to me. I said this to me. A City fan said, edit that out. A City fan said to me that, oh, it's all right. We'll get off the allegations anyway. We'll get off anyway. Our lawyers will get us out of it. And I thought, why is it that I know everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but I want sport to be fair. I know that Arsenal spend more than other clubs. I agree with the models that you've come up with. So in terms of it evens out, to make it fair, I absolutely do. But. So even as an Arsenal fan, I'm generally, near the top end of spending, and we don't do it on the same scale as some clubs, but in terms of we still are more lucky than others.
Yeah.
But I want it to be fair. I want to go into a game thinking that, there's competition here, we're all keeping to the same rules and that kind of thing.
And I think this is the reason why the two of us made this podcast, and why so many half a dozen people appreciate the fact that we have this podcast, is because... Your team is towards the top, and you think it's good to have it fairer, where effectively Arsenal will be spending lower than the bottom teams.
So it's to our own detriment. You were talking about Everton earlier and how you were against that, but to our own detriment, I think it should hit us as well.
Yeah, and on the other end, I'm towards the bottom, supporting Everton, and I'm saying we should be punished for overspending. I think that's the reason why we can. Have a podcast like this, and
we need to educate so many other people. And only a few minority of half a dozen of people actually value what we're saying.
Yeah, because so many fans are basically, the City fans going, it doesn't matter for us, we can get charged, whatever. So either they know they're guilty and they don't care, or they are so blinded by bias that they think they're innocent, even though they have no idea whether they're innocent or not.
It's almost the Trumpism kind of wet approach,
completely. Isn't it? There was this one City fan, Steve something, on... do you remember when Neville and Carragher did the...
the debate thing. The fan debate.
And he was arguing, he was saying, no, we're absolutely innocent because of this and that and stuff. He's got no idea. Absolutely. Even Man City financiers probably don't really know. They'll be looking at their accounts going... I really have no idea what we've done here.
Right.
It's just unbelievable the how the bias blinds them so much.
I mean, we don't know if they're innocent or guilty, but they're definitely not innocent, are they?
No, exactly, yeah. We don't know if they're guilty, but they're definitely guilty.
They're not innocent.
What do you think? How do you think they should be punished?
Well, that's for example. I asked you that question because it always sounds more clever if you ask questions and answer it.
Well, I'll tell you exactly how they should be punished.
What would you do, Sess?
Well, the reason why I don't think they should just be relegated to the Championship is because of, like I said, they'll just come straight back up. Everything will be the same. So they need to be punished for a set period of time. Let's say 3 years.
Like a transfer ban?
Not just that, because the transfer ban, that's effectively the same as what Chelsea had. But what they've done is far worse. So I think one of two things. Either relegate them to League 2, so that it takes them 3 years to come back to the Prem. So they have to go to League 1, Championship, Premier League.
Yep.
Or relegate them to the Championship with no possibility of promotion to the Premier League for 3 years. And the reason why I say 3 years is because if you don't give this 3-year system, just take them down to the Championship, they'll just come back up the next season. They'll be able to convince Haaland, Rodri, all of those, exactly as I said.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say to those players, we're going to be relegated either to League 2 or Championship, and we won't get back to the Premiership for 3 years, they'll go,
I'm not hanging around here then.
Yeah, I'm not giving you the 3 best years of my career, so they'll all leave. And I think there needs to be a punishment sufficient so that they don't keep their best players and everything will go back to normal. It needs to be to the point where they don't necessarily self-destruct, but they have to be completely different to what they were.
Also, we want everything to be fair, but also this has to be a deterrent.
Yes.
So other clubs don't do the same things and try to cheat the system.
Yeah.
If what they've done is cheating.
Yeah. Considering that with one charge, where they were found guilty, but they came forward with it, Nottingham Forest could be relegated with one charge.
Yeah.
We're talking about 115 charges.
And in terms of that being relegated, it's not just going down to the lower league as well.
Yeah.
The amount of money that you drop because of the earnings difference between the two leagues.
Yeah.
We're talking in it's like 80 million or 100 million or something, isn't it? Between the leagues.
Yeah.
Ridiculous amount of money, which is even more, that's going to have a bigger impact to the smaller clubs.
Yeah. Everton, Forest and Sheffield United, if one of us goes down, we might not come back up to the Prem. Whereas if City go to the Championship, they'll definitely come back.
But I would go with your option 1, I think it was, where it's closer to the bottom of the pyramid. That's what my fix would be. I thought about this for
League 2.
Yeah. So of the professional pyramid, right down to the bottom of League 2. Yeah. So every other club gets bumped up a place, basically.
Yeah.
So they go right down to the bottom of League 2. Well, just for starting next season or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they have to work their way back up. And like you say, it ticks the boxes that you were talking about in terms of the players. If they want to stay and be committed to it for footballing reasons, great.
Yeah.
But otherwise, well, they'll have to promote their youth team and buy other players. But also, I wouldn't let them just go and spend a ridiculous amount of money again whilst they're in that league. So
yeah, they've got their own. Well, they've got their own limits for how much you can lose, but there should be limits on how much you can spend. Really.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's too harsh to put a transfer ban on there as well, but the problem is
I don't think so.
The City's success, times that they've been charged for, like from going back to 2013 or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but that was basically the time where they spent the money to cement their legacy. So all of their success that they've been having now is because of that.
The building blocks were those first decade or so.
Yeah, so if you just punish them by taking them down to the Championship, it doesn't undo any of the legacy, the building blocks. They'll just come back up, everything will be normal. Yeah. It needs to get to a point. That's why I think it has to be 3 years where they don't go into the Premier League, because there needs to be some way to destroy at least some of those building blocks. They're still
to level the playing field, essentially.
Yeah, they're still going to have the world-class training ground, the amazing stadium and stuff like that when they come back up to the Premier League, but they won't have the absolute, at the moment, we say Rodri, De Bruyne, Haaland, they're some of the best players in the world.
Yeah, so I think we fixed it.
I think this is one of the biggest fixes that we've done.
This is important.
It affects so much.
Yeah, and like we said, it affects all of football, because this needs to be not just Premier League now. This needs to be FIFA-wide.
Yeah. And the reason why we have to do it is because we've proven that we could be so level-headed about it and unbiased that you supporting a team towards the top being effectively punished financially, and me towards the bottom potentially saying that we should be punished more.
That appeal shouldn't be accepted.
We're showing that bias isn't in our minds. We want football to be fair in general.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean on that appeals thing, you're absolutely right. I mean, if there's no new evidence, I think you said this because we were having a brief chat before we started recording.
Yeah.
If there's no new evidence, why should the appeals process lead to a different result?
Yeah, effectively they're going, oh yeah, you're right actually.
Oh, you know what? You do look quite upset. Okay,
yeah.
We'll take a few points off. That's not how it should work.
Yeah, and I'm not saying take these 4 points back. That's not what I'm saying.
You do sound like the Monty Python bartering sketch.
Yeah.
Well, no. What?
No, you're supposed to argue. No, it's not like that. I'm just saying it should have been 6 points deduction in the first
From
place.
the first place, yeah.
Yeah. Or if anything, it shouldn't be 6 points because why did Forest get 4 points? And then Sheffield United get 2 points?
Yeah, if it's different amounts of money, or is it the how? I know in accounting that, well, I know I'm waffling on now, but in accounting, if you're open with it, I don't know how open Forest were with it or not. I think
all of the teams at the bottom
equally
were
is
open.
like saying, oh, just so you know, because if you hide
guess
it...
the only team that were hiding everything, Man City.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they should have been more like Chelsea, where they spend it all,
yeah.
and then they just try to put them on really long contracts and don't break the rules.
Yeah.
These Chelsea, in a sense, Chelsea were closer to being correct because they at least tried not to hide it.
or like Newcastle, where they go, brilliant, we can spend loads, and then next year go, uh-oh, we need to stop
we
spending.
can't spend anything.
We have to sell everyone.
We spent too much. Oh no!
They're having to sell, plan to sell like Bruno and
Isak and stuff, isn't it? They're looking at whether they need to sell Isak, which I know Arsenal are rubbing their hands a little bit. Yeah. So we like him.
Which is one of the reasons why Arsenal got punished, because we got to that point where we needed to sell people, and then COVID happened. Then we couldn't sell people.
Yeah, and you ended up selling players, but for less than the value you should have had.
Far less,
like Digne and stuff. And
But yeah,
well, there we go.
One of the biggest fixes we've done.
That's a very important one, isn't it? It's very topical, and that's brilliant.
And we are loving our Canadian listeners, aren't we?
You said the Canadian. We've got American and Canadian listeners now, which is amazing. Someone else in the Commonwealth, though, Canadian. That's brilliant.
That's true, yeah. So, yeah, you Americans and Canadians, like we always say, just contact your country, because they have contacts to their entire country.
Yeah. You'll be doing your country a disservice if you don't spread the word. So, and let's keep fixing football together. If you have any other topics you'd like us to fix, by the way, don't worry, we have got a lot of things on our list of things to fix. But if you have certain fixes you'd like us to have a look at, then do let us know.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe on our socials, and it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.